is going to be episode number 1. By now you should have watched the pilot, and if you wanted to, the backstory. If you want to go through all, 4 episodes there, all an hour and 20 minutes of all the story behind why all this is a thing. If not, I don't blame you. An hour and 20 minutes is longer than I have every day to spend watching YouTube videos. But either way, shooting this one a little differently today. This time I'm using my smartphone instead of my computer because my computer is like 7 years old. And even though it was a great computer 7 years ago, now the hardware is just a little dated to be doing video on. So anyway, we're going to try on the smartphone and see if the audio and the video turn out a little better. So anyway, welcome again to episode number 1. And here we're actually going to start talking about actual topics. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about research and knowing your market, basically. And basically, if you are looking at going into business, or you have been in business, even if you've been in business for like 30 years, and you think, oh my God, I know everything there is to know about, this particular market or blah, 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 doesn't matter. If you are in business or looking at going into business, you need to know your shit. You need to know your market. You need to know your competitors. You need to know everything there is to know, or at least as much as you can, about what you're doing. And why do I say this? I have a tendency to go off half-cocked when I do something, especially in business here. And by the way, I got my notes over here, so I'm going to be looking over this way. But anyway, I do that a lot. I tend to be one of those people who I get a little bit of information and my brain turns that little bit of information into way more than you could really logically conjecture off of it, which personally I blame college for that, I'll write in all those BS papers where it's like, yes, I learned 2 facts off Wikipedia and now I'm going to write a 6-page essay on that. Yes. But anyway, whatever. It's something I did a lot when I started my first business, and it kind of got me in a lot of trouble. When I started my business, I based pretty much everything that I was going to do off of a few little bits of information, that didn't really show me the big picture of the market I was in. As a result, I hit wall after wall after wall as I was trying to launch. And finally, my business just died, which is ironic, I know, because in the in the backstory video, I was talking about, I'm just about to launch. Guess what? Yeah, things change. My business just up and died, legitly died this time. I'm actually looking at disbanding my little LLC and starting fresh, I guess. We'll talk about that in the future. And at some point, I'll actually talk a little bit about what the actual business was. Consider I just did an hour and a half worth of videos of backstory. I really don't want to go more right now into what exactly I was doing, but at some point in the future, I'll clue you in on exactly what my little so-called business was and what it was doing or trying to do. Anyway, so doing your research, why is that important? Firstly, because you won't be surprised by things that you didn't know that will completely derail you. You'll be less vulnerable to market changes. You'll be less vulnerable to surprises just popping up, like things like liability, or things in the market that you're like, oh, I didn't know that person was selling that, or whatever. It makes a big difference, and it will also save you from feeling like an idiot when you get derailed by something you should have discovered ages ago and didn't, like this guy right here. But anyway, so when I started, I didn't do enough research, and just a refresher, what I was doing originally, I was taught how to do an Amazon business, how to do e-commerce and stuff like that. And basically what they taught me is you're going to go through Amazon, you're going to look for little niche markets where, there's not a lot of competition, or the competition hasn't been firmly established, blah, blah, blah. You're going to find the same product or some similar product. You're going to throw it up there and start selling it, and of course being an engineer, that's what I'm studying in school for the last 7 years. I was like, hey, let's make a product, we'll solve all the problems with the previous products, whatever. But anyway, when I was first getting into that, I didn't do enough research. Firstly, I didn't do enough research on Amazon itself and the markets I was going into. I kind of went in and found a little niche, and it was like, ooh, I only see a couple people selling this when I look at the first page. Like, this is obviously a good market, and oh my God, nobody has a lot of reviews and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't really dig deeply. I didn't go through and look at a whole bunch of, people's listings and see like, what exactly they were offering or what their reviews were, beyond kind of like the first couple main entries on there. So I didn't look at that. And then when I did look at like the little bit of information that I did use to build my thing, basically what I did is I went through like the best selling competitors out there for this particular little product that I was going to create, and I looked at the reviews and I was like, okay, what are people complaining about? What do they not like about this little thing? And I was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, here's something. A lot of people are mentioning this little thing. I know. Let's make a product that's the exact same thing, but it's going to solve this little issue, which in fairness is kind of what I was told to do. Like the mentor I was working with told me, like, yeah, if you can fix problems with other stuff out there that gives you kind of an edge, which it may, but, it goes back to your research. How much does it really matter? Turns out that for this little thing, this little problem I was trying to fix, probably doesn't matter much, considering that thing I was selling was very cheap and people don't really care that much. It's one of those things that I think they're happy to complain about, but they're not willing to pay like another $10 for something that fixes that little problem, and then there were a lot of other little things later on. The market changed and I didn't pay enough attention to it. And then finally, the thing that killed my business was a liability issue that I did not become aware of. Unfortunately, it never bit me because I never got a chance to like actually sell anything and have liability be a thing. But either way, ultimately, I just kind of realized actually there's a thing there that could be a lot of liability, and I didn't know about that to begin with. So I kind of went off in a direction that ignored that. And then when I realized that liability was a thing, I was like, oh, well, either I can spend, 3 more months remaking all my stuff and, working around that liability, or, basically what I chose is I'm done. I'm going to find something else to do. But basically my problem from day one is that I kind of had blinders on. It's like when I did research, I wanted to just find enough information to convince myself that it was a good idea. I didn't want to look at all the information about all the problems involved with it or all the competition. I think mostly out of fear in my case. It's kind of like none of us wants to fail, so we don't want to see all the things that say, oh, this is probably not a good idea. Even though a lot of those things, it's like really, if you know they're a problem, you can, expect them and work around them and like not get sunk by them. But anyway, so basically I didn't do a lot of research, or the research I did do was very hit and miss, kind of like cherry picking, I guess, and then not consciously. But anyway, my entire business was basically a house of cards. I got held up over and over again by things that I shouldn't have known, but I didn't. And I'm sorry, I'm going through my notes here now. So basically, you need to do your research beforehand. Especially if you're going into like a new market or you're trying to start a business or whatever, you need to go through and figure some stuff out. There's a tendency we all do, as entrepreneurs. Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, really good book if you ever want to read a good book, talks about this. He calls it the entrepreneurial seizure. It's kind of this idea that we all just kind of wake up one day and we're like, hey, I've got a really good idea. I bet that would be the most amazing thing ever, and people would buy it, And we kind of get those blinders on, and suddenly it's like, I'm not going to look at anything that tells me that my idea isn't perfect, which is a really good way to sabotage yourself from the beginning, So you need to do the research that you want to do, but you also really need to do the research that you don't want to do. And I talk about if you've been in business for a long time, because you need to continuously be doing research. For example, the thing I was selling, I didn't do a lot of research at the beginning, or at least not as much as I thought I did. But I also did not keep continuously researching while I was developing my product. And the way it worked out is when I finally had a product and I was getting ready to launch to launch it, I got back on Amazon and I was looking at the competition, and suddenly the competition was a lot fiercer. There were a lot more competitors, And a lot of those competitors had more reviews and, went from being, oh, that's just somebody, trying to get started to actually this guy looks like he has a pretty good product there, and I didn't keep track of that. And honestly, would it have made a lot of difference? Probably not. It would have been one of those things where it's like, hey, I know this guy's doing really good, crap. But even so, when I finally did see that, it kind of threw me for a loop there. It's kind of like you get hit with something and it's like, oh God, crap, what have I done? But either way, while you're doing business, you need to keep track of these things as you go. And even if you're in a very non-competitive market, like you're super niche and there's nobody else who sells like your thing at all, or if you're like in like a very commoditized market, like I don't know, maybe you sell toilet paper or something, something that really marketing isn't a thing for it, people will just kind of buy the first thing they see off the shelf. It doesn't matter, you should be aware of what's going on in your market, because you never know. There might be something changing and somebody else may figure out some genius way to sell toilet paper and you get left behind because you're like, oh, I'm just selling toilet paper the way I always have because it's always worked, you need to keep track of what's going on. So basically, when you first get your idea, and, you come up with some new business idea, you need to do some Googling, or some research in whatever your arena is. If you're selling on Amazon, you need to do some browsing on Amazon. And if you sell online, Google other similar things. See if you can find other websites that are selling something similar to yours or something that could be called a competitor. If you have a mom and pop store, like maybe you've got a local store or something, research what else is available, locally for one, like who else is in town who people could go to and buy your thing, and also look online because, like think like websites like Etsy or stuff like that where people can make like little homemade things, and sell them, online. Let's say you're like a local craft store or whatever, you kind of need to know about stuff like that. You want to know that there are websites where people can get the same thing you're selling locally, but they can get it online and on a much broader level. There's more on this online store than you can offer in your little shop. You need to know stuff like that. Even if you're a freaking YouTube star, like this guy right now, yeah, total YouTube star here, sure. Or a blogger, or something like that. What else is in your niche? Who else is blogging about something similar, or who's doing YouTube videos on something, some similar topic or whatever, and, I'm not going to say that it's like just because you know what the competition is doing, it's going to like miraculously propel your business forward, or it's going to miraculously keep you from hitting that landmine that just blows you up. But it will keep you in touch with what the market's doing and what other people are offering and what you need to keep people's interest or stay competitive or, how to operate. Something I'm going to talk about here in a minute is like operational costs. That's something you probably want to research too. But basically whatever you're doing, there's some things you should look up. Firstly, competitors. How big is the market? Who is in the market? Who's just starting out and who's really established. And look at what your competitors are offering. Especially if they're doing well. Kind of like model your success off of other people's success is one of those things that you hear a lot in entrepreneurial circles. But basically, yeah, look at what are they offering. How can you compete with that? If they're offering a lot of stuff and you're offering one little thing, you might need to throw some more value there, or find a way to make it so cheap, that people just want your thing and not the big thing, or else make a niche within the niche. You could say everybody else is offering this big kit, and you don't need all that crap. You just need this little thing that you can get for $2 as opposed to $20 for the kit, or whatever. Knowing what's out there enables you to figure out where you can fit in there and how you can compete. Also look at price points, kind of what I was just talking about there, especially on the strong competitors, because if they're making a profit, or let's start over there. If they are the strong competitor, they must be making a profit, which means that whatever they're getting it for, or whatever they're selling it for, they must be getting it cheaper, which was something that I kind of ran into when I was making a product for Amazon. Remember how I talked about that there were competitors who I looked there at the beginning and they were just starting out, and then like 6 months later I went back and looked at them again and it was like, holy crap, that guy got a lot of reviews really quickly. That was one of the things that kind of derailed me, was the price point. I remember there was this one seller when I was first starting out that they were selling basically the same thing I was selling, and they had like a little kit. They were selling like a bunch of these things in like a little 6-pack or whatever. And when I first saw them, they had like 3 reviews. They were good reviews. They were like 3 5-star reviews. But they were only 3 of them. And anyway, I went back 6 months later, and this guy had like 75-star reviews or whatever. But one of the things that really kind of hit me when I went back and researched that and looked it up later is that this guy was selling this 6-pack for like $18, which means he was like, selling each little individual thing in that 6-pack for like $3 a pop. $3 a pop is what I was getting mine for. So he was selling them for $3. I was buying them for $3. And which means that if he was selling them for $3 a piece, basically, he must have been getting them for dirt cheap. Like kind of like the general rule of thumb for any kind of buying product and then selling it. At least like on an industrial level, it's like you want to get it for about a quarter of what you're going to sell it if you want to actually like make a profit after all the operational costs. And I don't know what he was getting them for, but just by looking at that, I can tell, well, he's selling a lot of these, and he's selling them for basically $3 a piece. $18 for a 6-pack. So he must be getting them very, very cheap. So instantly it's like, well, crap, I can't compete with that because I'm buying them for $3. If I want to make any profit after operational costs, I've got to sell them for like $7 a pop. So anyway, that's the kind of thing you need to be aware of. So again, price points, you can do your research and see, okay, somebody else is getting these for really cheap, and none of the manufacturers I've found are offering me something that cheap. So I need to keep looking for a different manufacturer, or maybe I need to just get out of this market, because maybe I can't compete. But anyway, just something to look at there. Research your customers. Again, and Amazon, read reviews. And especially get feedback from actual customers. Like if you're actually in business and you have customers, getting feedback from them is like the number one way to make your business better. Like what do your customers want? You don't sell them what you think they want. You sell them what they actually want. I'll probably do an actual full video on that at some point. But basically, you never want to sell your idea. You want to go find your target audience and say, what do you want? And then make that for them and give it to them. Whatever it is you sell. But yeah, get customer feedback. What do your customers care about? Do they care at all? Again, for the thing that I thought would make my little product so cool, I got from reviews. People were complaining about this one little feature, and the more I kind of looked into the field, it kind of became more and more obvious that yeah, people will complain about that, but they're probably not willing to spend another $6 for something that fixes that little problem. It's just not something they care about that much. So get feedback. Be careful not to read too much into any specific thing, but let that feedback kind of direct where you're going. And operational costs. Research the operational costs in your business. Like if you need to ship something, or if you need to receive pallets, that's expensive, by the way. Shipping like a pallet of stuff, depending on how big it is and how heavy. And also how dense too. It was funny. The things I was shipping were glass, so they were actually really cheap to ship because they were so heavy compared to how small they were. That they were just very dense. But if you're shipping something big and bulky and not very heavy, it's actually more expensive. But stuff like that. Shipping, receiving. If you need insurance, or some kind of liability coverage, or employees. Employees are really expensive. But you need to figure out how much is that going to cost you before you just jump in and do that. At some video in the future, we're going to talk about metrics, which is kind of like the bread and butter of retail. It's like how much did I buy something for versus how much can I sell it for? That's my profit. And then personally, I love metrics. They're really cool. But the problem is they don't tell the full story. Because they don't talk much about operational costs. So that's something you need to research at the beginning. What do you need to make the business run? And how much is it going to cost? Because you need to factor that into your price. And learn as much about the market as quickly as you can. They say that money loves speed, and opportunities here today and gone tomorrow. you need to do this as quickly as you can and then keep doing it. Like, again, like part of my problem, it took me 6 months to get a product from idea to I actually have it and I'm ready to launch it. And in that time, the market completely changed. The Amazon niche inflated, and suddenly there wasn't a lot of room anymore for this thing I was trying to launch. So as quickly as you can would be good. Trying to find that nice balance between quick and, between quick and thorough, happy medium, I guess. There's no answer I can give you for exactly what the happy medium is, but, try and be quick about it. Don't waste time sitting there being like, let me research the 1,000th page here, whatever. You get it. And again, keep doing your research as the business progresses, because things do change, and don't let a market change catch you by surprise. Like it did for me, again, like I said, that guy in the 6 months while I was launching my product, this guy who was a competitor, went from 3 reviews to 70 or 80 really good reviews, and, plus he was just like, had a much better price point than me. I couldn't compete with him even if I tried probably, but, kind of the biggest thing I would say for doing research is you need to be aware of what you're afraid of researching. Because remember, like at the beginning, I kind of had blinders on. It was like I wanted to research the stuff that pointed to, hey, this is a really good idea, but I didn't want to look at the things that were like, actually, here's a problem. And in my case, I think it was kind of like a fear of failure, because again, like logically, you'd think you'd want to know the things that could be a problem and, find ways to deal with them. But that's not how psychology works, and if you don't have that problem, awesome. You're way ahead of me then, because unfortunately, I found that if it was something like I didn't want to know the answer to, or I was afraid the answer would be more of not a good idea, the answer is don't do this. It was kind of something that I just kind of glossed over. I was like, oh, I'll research it. Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, cool. Good to know. So my advice would be pick like the top 3 things that you are afraid of knowing, like your biggest competitor, or, why that one competitor is completely outselling you or whatever. We don't like knowing those things, because we don't like acknowledging that they exist. But you need to know that, because once you know what they're doing, you can copy that. You can say, hey, I can do the exact same thing. You're giving away free coffee with your donuts. Guess what? My donut shop, we're going to give away free coffee now. But you need to know those things. So find the things that you're afraid of knowing, or that you're really in resistance to knowing, and make those your number one priority to figure out. And again, we all get ideas we think are cool. Doing your research and getting that feedback is kind of like the key to avoiding falling in love with your product and putting something out there like I did, or almost did, never actually did, that turns out to be not a good idea because you based it off of information that was basically something you liked rather than what the actual market cared about. And it'll help you not be in a space where you're constantly reacting to the market. You can make changes ahead of time rather than go to launch like me and look at something and say, oh crap, I can't launch now. It'll just help you avoid that knee-jerk, oh crap, I just blew up thing. And again, that was my Achilles heel the entire time I was doing anything with this. And recently I've gotten into the habit of when I'm looking at some new idea, which I've been doing a lot lately, because like I said, I just decided to completely shut down my business, which maybe I'll talk a little bit about at the end here, but, basically, I've been looking at a lot of new ideas lately, and the thing I'm trying to do now is anytime I have an idea I'm kind of looking at, I try and find 3 or 4 other companies, 3 or 4 other websites, 3 or 4 other businesses, whatever. I'm trying to find a couple other examples of people who are doing something very similar, or who are selling, who could be a competitor, basically. And I look at what they're offering and how they're offering it, and I use that to help brainstorm what I could do if I decided to go into that market. Again, it's like if I know what they're doing, I have a rough template for, well, what do I want to offer? I probably want to do something fairly similar, and you don't want to copy them exactly. You can't just clone what they're doing because, they might sue you. They'll say, actually, you're infringing on our proprietary thing or whatever, or you're infringing on our copyright of our sales copy or something. But plus it's just lame. Don't be a pirate. But anyways, that's what I'm trying to do now. When I come up with an idea, it's okay, let's see who else is out there first. And are they successful to begin with? And what can I learn from how they are doing things? And it's actually really helped me with some new business ideas that I've been kicking around. I haven't completely decided what I'm going to do yet, but from the ideas that I am kind of kicking around right now, I've gotten a lot more for those ideas by kind of like researching what other people are doing out there and seeing who's a competitor and what the competitors are offering. But either way, it's definitely something I haven't wanted to look at previously, and now I'm really working to force myself to do that kind of research, even though it's very painful. That way I don't keep getting derailed by these silly little things. So anyway, your homework, I guess, this is something I guess you could consider homework for this is, regardless of whether you're coming up with an idea for a business or have been in business for a long time, take some time and sit down and do some research. What are your competitors doing? Who are your competitors? What's their price point? What do you think they're doing in order to make their logistics work? Or their like operational costs actually balance out. Stuff like that. And again, especially identify the biggest things you don't want to know and figure those out. There's your homework, I guess. So, cool. Anyway, that's basically all I have for today as far as content. I have a nice little note sheet here I've been going through. But anyway, I guess kind of just an update. Like I said, I'm looking at dismantling my business. I talked a lot about how, like in the backstory videos, how I was getting ready to launch finally. Well, then that video was filmed like a month ago now, and I've just been like uploading a quarter of it like every week. And unfortunately, in that month, there's been a lot of stuff happened. I discovered a liability issue that I wasn't aware of, and again, I either had the choice of, well, you can go back and like redo everything you've done for the last 3 months, and basically start all over again, or whatever you want to do. And I basically just decided, you know what, I'm done with this market. I'm done with this little niche. And now I've decided I'm done with the business. Mostly like the actual LLC that I had going, my little company that never did anything. Mostly just because it feels like bad luck, like I've been working on it for a year, hasn't gotten me anywhere. And partly is because, the big company X that kind of like scanned me over, like they started that company for me. It's kind of like as part of my package that I bought, this mentorship training. I also got like a free LLC startup, with some little company that like does that. It's some company that will literally like do the paperwork for you to start up an LLC or a corporation or whatever. But it was part of my buy-in package, whatever. So they basically started it for me. And I don't know, to me that just, I've never liked that. It's kind of like I've always felt like they kind of had their fingers in my business, which makes no logical sense, but I'm, very much an intuitive like that. Little things like that make a big deal to me. But anyway, just between that and it's just bad luck, and it's, the LLC's not really set up for the new opportunities I'm kind of looking at. So I'm kind of thinking in the next month I'm going to be completely, firstly trying to liquidate my inventory, which is fun. I'll have a video talking about that at some point in the future. And just kind of close the books on that and dissolve that LLC, just completely get rid of it and look at starting something else in the future. But anyway, just a little update on my, again, very, very terrible entrepreneurial life. Anyway, cool. So that is all I have for today, and I will see you on the next video. Again, good luck with whatever you're doing, because I assume if you're watching this, you'll probably try to do some kind of your own entrepreneurial thing. Hopefully you have better luck with that than I do, and I will say goodbye, and I'll see you next time.